Now, the other day at San Diego Comic-Con, Marvel had a panel where they showed off their grand plan for the next several years. One that included over a dozen upcoming movies and or Disney Plus shows, and who knows how many more that weren't announced at the time, that will all culminate in 2 Avengers films in 2025. And though I certainly know not everyone was impressed by or a huge fan of Phase 4 of the MCU, and you can certainly argue that maybe the juggernaut that is the comic book genre is slowing down a bit or just becoming too much for some people, or they just want something different already, or after almost 15 years of it. Either way, it cannot be denied that what Marvel has done and continues to do is impressive on so many levels. I mean, the MCU itself has to be one of, if not the most impressive feats in the history of film. It's right up there in terms of impact on the industry and pop culture and just the world itself, alongside something like Star Wars, which was a huge game changer back in 1977 when it first came out. And speaking of Star Wars, while watching this panel, I couldn't help but think about it, about how, while Marvel announces countless upcoming films and shows, Star Wars has been relatively quiet in comparison, even though just a couple months back now, they had an entire convention devoted to their franchise. A convention where almost nothing new was announced, where nothing even remotely resembling a roadmap or plan for the future or next couple years was given. In fact, we don't even know when the next Star Wars film will come out, much less what it might be called or be about. All we've been getting lately out of Lucasfilm are updates on previously announced projects, or at least some of their previously announced projects. Others like the Lando series or Rangers of the New Republic, well, they kind of seem to be forgotten about or were apparently derailed for other reasons. And don't get me wrong here, I'm not saying I want Star Wars to be exactly like Marvel. I'm not saying I want to see a list of or roadmap of 20 new Star Wars shows and movies coming out in the next 3 years. I think that's just way too much for any franchise, and I do wonder how long it is before the bubble on the superhero genre just bursts, before people really do just start getting sick of it and wanting something new. All that said, it would be nice to know there is some kind of plan in place at Lucasfilm. It'd be nice to get some kind of an idea where they're trying to take the franchise, if they themselves know where they're taking it. I mean, it has to be embarrassing for Lucasfilm, not to mention it has to make Big Daddy Disney, who owns both Marvel and Lucasfilm, it has to make them less than pleased to see Marvel not only always presenting a game plan, but always, more or less, sticking to it and making a ton of money in the process. Whereas brother Lucasfilm never shows a fully formed game plan, and every time they announce anything, be it a particular project or that someone has been hired to write and or direct something, we never get any details, they're just supposed to figure it out eventually, I guess. It either takes years to see it put into motion and or to learn anything about any sort of progress, or it just fizzles out and is never heard about again. And no, I'm not just talking about the Rian Johnson trilogy, which was announced 5 years ago, and there hasn't been much of a peep out of Lucasfilm ever since. We all know that one's never going to happen, that the reaction to The Last Jedi, whether you're happy about it or not, got the thing permanently shelved. Instead, I'm talking about things like the J.D. Dillard and Matt Owens Star Wars project, which you've probably forgotten was even a thing, considering we've heard virtually nothing about it in over 2 years. And yes, this was an officially announced Lucasfilm project. And so when you again look at not only the success of Marvel, but just how well handled it is by Kevin Feige and company, that they know what they're doing, that they always have a plan, and when a project gets announced, you can rest assured it's actually going to come to fruition. And around the time they say it will come to fruition, it really starts to make you wonder, with again both being owned by Disney, how there hasn't been a major shakeup at Lucasfilm. How they seem to continue to get away without any sort of discernible plan. And sure, Lucasfilm has certainly contributed to the early success of Disney+, but how a franchise that not only started out as films, but also, as mentioned earlier, was a game changer for the entire industry and became known for its trilogies, how they can't even seem to get another movie out, just one singular movie out, no matter how hard they try, and no matter how many people they hire or announce, it's getting kind of laughable at this point. And let's not play pretend here and claim it's anything besides incompetence at this point. Let's not try and say it's Star Wars fatigue or anything like that, which was claimed to be the reason why Solo was a relative failure at the box office. Let's not pretend that Disney is truly happy with what Star Wars or Lucasfilm has done. Let's not pretend that they think it couldn't and shouldn't be supporting a similar type release schedule to Marvel, that it couldn't be cranking out multiple shows and movies each and every year and building towards event-style films like Avengers, that are all but guaranteed to generate billions at the box office. And mind you, I'm not saying that's what I want out of Star Wars, but I am saying that is what Disney wants out of Star Wars. But maybe, just maybe, everything is about to change. Maybe there are some grand plans going on behind the scenes at Lucasfilm, and there's even what some think is potentially evidence for that. Because very recently it was learned that Lucasfilm has trademarked 3 names. And before you ask what's the big deal with trademarking a couple names, well, shortly before San Diego Comic-Con it was learned that Marvel had trademarked a bunch of names, and they turned out to be the names of upcoming shows and movies announced at Comic-Con. So, in theory, these new Lucasfilm trademarks could be the names of upcoming movies or shows or projects of some kind, or who knows what else exactly. And personally, I'm unfortunately leaning towards the who knows what exactly, because these 3 names are, well, they're interesting, I'll say that. And they are the Great Circle, the Galactic Circle, and Circle of Resistance. And quite honestly, these names are, well, they're neither exciting nor very telling. I mean, that's a heavy use of the word circle, so much so you wonder if it's somehow a placeholder for another word that they don't want leaking out there, like Marvel had its titles leaked out. Then again, and mind you, I'm no expert on this, but I don't think that's how trademarks work. I don't think you can just put a filler word in there and then change it later. And even if it is a placeholder, what word is it a placeholder for? The word war, or the Force, or something else entirely? Or would they all have different words that the circle is being used as a placeholder for? And if they're not placeholders, which I don't think they are or can be, what's the obsession with circles? What does it all mean? Are these names for the 3 trilogy time periods, perhaps? Even though they already got a recent sort of rename? The only real clue we even have here is the word resistance. It's the only word that isn't completely generic and has direct relations to something we know, which is, of course, the resistance in the sequel trilogy era. So is this some sort of project related to the sequels, or maybe a trilogy after the sequel trilogy? Or could these just be the names of some upcoming books and there's really nothing more to it? And again, I tend to lean towards this being a non-story, that whatever these turn out to be, if anything at all, it isn't alluding to a new trilogy or something important, if you will. Heck, for all we know, this is a complete red herring. All I do know is, despite some doom and gloom forecasts for the film industry, especially after COVID hit a couple of years ago and shut the whole thing down for a while, and people started to think maybe the movie theater era was coming to a permanent end, that streaming was the one and only future of entertainment, I think we can safely say, after some massive box office hits as of late, that movies are not only back, but people still, and maybe forever will, love going to see them in the theater. And so Lucasfilm better start to figure things out on the movie front. They better start formulating game plans beyond, well, we'll just hire this talented person and they'll eventually make us a film. They better get someone in there like a Kevin Feige, who not only knows and loves the property, but that can formulate and carry out some kind of plan already. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now I open it up to all of you to speculate on what these titles could be. Are they movies? Are they books? Are they something else entirely? Is this a non-story, or is this the next era of Star Wars being revealed? Whatever you think, leave your comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars, and until next time, thanks for watching.